Welcome, Tristan. Today we're here on Let's Talk. Who are you and why should people care?
Well, I'm Tristan Dlabik, and I've been thinking about this question, why should people care, for the last 4.5 minutes, however long you exposed me to the question, and I have come up with this almost Kanye type of answer of, I don't know if people should care.
It's true. You know what's interesting is that people come on here and they tell me that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't care about me.
Yeah.
There are people out there that don't want to be known, that want to be behind the scenes, and they kind of want to live a life that's not seen by the public.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people that I know, they don't necessarily have these large pages on Instagram, and they don't really have a large fan base or anything, but they don't want to be known except for by the people that they actually come into contact with.
Yeah.
It's that type of personality where, like, not everyone needs to know what I'm doing.
Yes.
But this is the impact that I want to have on the people that I touch.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's give a little bit of a brief recap on who are you and what's your story? Where do you come from? What do you do now? How have you transitioned through your life? What's a little bit about you?
So a little bit about myself is, well, first off, I was born and raised in the South. So I was born and raised in Little Rock, Arkansas, and humble beginnings. That escalated very quickly, so we came into a significant amount of money. Dad working really hard, just a great businessman, a great storyteller, a great seller, just a solid businessman. And so he was able to use his communication skills and efforts to pretty much just build up a $1 million business through contracting and doing construction and different things like that, putting odd jobs together and just making a bunch of money. And I met my mom probably in the process of meeting my mom. They had me, and basically I think maybe the T's weren't crossed and some I's weren't dotted, and kind of the American system kind of tripped them up. And my mom actually went away when I was 8 years old. They split up when I was like 6 or 7, and then she went away shortly after. I remember I vividly remember her like coming home one day and saying I have to go away. And I think that was probably one of the most shattering moments of my life, because I didn't fully process nor understand what was going on. But I remember her walking out to some black SUVs, and from my recollection, maybe I'm just off. But from there, they took her away, and I think that was kind of the start of my journey of what I called myself as like an adversity king. Of the adversity that life delivers you, you have an opportunity to elevate or to dissipate, is to just essentially crumble and dissolve in the midst of it. And so you can evolve or you can dissolve, and most people dissolve in the midst of the adversity. And so she went away. My dad takes me and my sister from Pennsylvania. That's where my mom was from. We went back to Arkansas with him for a year and a half, and from there we were just grinding. You know what I mean? My dad and myself just locked in sports, academics, and pretty much just instilling those character skills that have made me super successful today. I got a large portion of that aggressive, you're going to go out and win, and there's no other option. You win or you die.
Absolutely.
There's no emotion. There's just the war. There's just the moment in front of you. There's nothing else. And that mindset truly has made me extremely successful and extremely fearless. You know what I mean? A lot of people have all these different speculations on world-ending events, the economy right now, and I worry about nothing. I just fear God. You know what I mean? I fear God. And if anything, I probably fear myself and the tendencies that I have of just wanting to revert to almost like a caveman type of mentality of like, we're just going to war. You know what I mean? Forget this. And then from there, to speed it up, my dad went away, and this is again the ultimate masculine, ultimate man of like zero emotion. And to wake up one day 9 or 10 years old and him telling me like just kind of breaking down like I gotta go away. And I'm like, man, again. And so he goes away, and from there, I remember we went to the hospital and we exchanged, like, they dropped me and my sister off with my mom, so she had gotten out. And it was only a couple years that she was away. She was away like 2 years, and then when she got out, my dad essentially went away. So, and then from there, I pretty much just went on to a scorched earth path. I was just everything in front of me. I wanted to fight. I wanted to destroy. I was very angry and broken, and that's pretty much what I did. I just broke everything that I came into contact with, and got kicked out of every school. Got expelled my sophomore year. My mom finished up my high school for me academically through PA Cyber Charter School, so shout out to her for essentially completing my education, because I always tell everybody I don't have anything above an 8th grade education.
You know what I
But I've
mean?
made millions, you know what I mean, since graduating high school. So it's definitely a weird event of how life has played out. And I was working at UPS in the midst of high school while expelled, and just doing some things, not good things on the streets and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of my story, and that all led into life insurance.
That's awesome. So obviously you touched on a little bit about how life is war and
Yeah.
how it's every single day you're going to war. I completely agree.
Yeah.
I see that every day is a new challenge. Every day there's more adversity. There's more struggle. And if you're seeking the struggle is the only way for growth.
Yes.
If you're always looking forward and you're constantly looking for obstacles and you're looking for things that are going to challenge you,
Yes.
that are going to be difficult for you to conquer,
Yes.
that's the only way to grow.
Yes.
And I want to go to that as one thing that I personally felt when I was starting my first business was that I didn't have the right people around me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find all these different people. I mean, but you don't have any value to provide, right? So I want to ask you, what do you think is the biggest benefit of you putting yourself out there and meeting bigger and better people with ideas that are larger than you could ever even imagine?
Well, I don't think you could put a price on it. You know what I mean? Like, I think in the last month or so, I've probably spent close to 6 figures just in connections and networking and just putting myself in that proximity of elevation. You know what I mean? Just getting around individuals that are just operating on a higher level, and it's really, I'd say that the differentiator isn't necessarily, the skill set of these individuals. It's more so the will set and the patience that they've had, because I would say most individuals that'll watch this and they're in their first couple years of entrepreneurship or whatever endeavor that is they have for success, they're on the right path. The separator is just, can you go another decade? You know what I mean? So when I sit down with these 35, 40, 45-year-olds that are, pumping 100 million a year or pumping, a couple $1 million a month like Wes Watson, it's like, he's just been developing himself and skill sets since he was 12 years old. You know what I mean? He was selling and communicating from a very young age. Then he went away, did some time, and he had to do some self-development for 10 plus years. He's been doing self-development now since he got out for 5 years. There's 16 years of development. Then you add in almost another 10 years of sales skills. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think a lot of people they're under this illusion or this false ideology that they deserve more than what they've paid for. And that's why I made a post this morning. It's like, people like to negotiate with me, and I find myself negotiating as well. And I realized, and I think I put it in my notes, you don't get what you want in life, you get what you negotiate. So whatever you're negotiating, you just realize you're going to get that in direct proportion. So when you ask for a handout, when you ask for a discount, just know that you're asking for the universe to give you less because you value yourself less.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think it's impeccable for you to realize the value that you can place on a individual that's operating on a 10x level, 100x level. It's worth the 10x. You know what I mean? If it's 30,000, it's 30,000. Shut up and find the money. You know what I mean? And if it's 250,000, it's 250,000.
Yeah.
Andy Elliott told me when I sent him 25 grand the other day, he said, dude, I sent Patrick David 250,000 just to get access to him and sit down and go over systems.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, it wasn't overnight, but over time, it completely revolutionized my life and my game. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is like, dude, that's not 25,000 I had allotted for this. You know what I mean? And it's like, people want to argue over $25 today, and it's like, there's a reason you're in the position that you're in. You've always found discounts. You've always found coupons. You've always found a way to get some type of handout or some type of free thing in life. And then you realize those are the individuals that are consistently poor and depressed and upset and nothing ever truly goes their way. It's like, but you got the handouts, you got the discounts, you got what you were asking for. Why is nothing going your way? Why are you still upset? Why are you still broken? Because it's always a reflection of who you are on the inside. It's never a matter of what you get and how you get it. It's more so who you are, who you become. That's what attracts just everything into your life in direct proportion to who you are.
So there's a quote by Tony Robbins. It goes, proximity is power.
Yes.
And obviously you're talking about how important it is to have these quality people around you and always being in the right circles and always getting access to not only the information that they have, but the willpower that they have. And there's something that I heard recently is the difference between will and want.
Yes.
When you say that you want something, it's completely different than saying that you will do it. I believe there was a video that Patrick Bet-David was talking about where he was talking to his son, and his son was saying that I will become the greatest fighter of all time. Have you seen this?
Yeah, yeah.
And he was like, I will become the greatest fighter of all time. And then they go through this emotional situation where he's arguing with his father and his other brother comes into the play and he's like, oh, I didn't say I will, but I wanted to. I said I want to. And there's this controversy between the will and the want. How would you describe that? The difference between will and want?
Again, it just reverts back to like we just stated previously, just a negotiation. You know what I mean? So when I don't know how to create that passionate, I don't know, drive between the two. I always tell people, you know, we can teach you how to sell, but we can't teach you like how to get hungry.
You can't.
You know what I mean?
It's within.
Exactly. So people have different triggers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or I think, you know, from reading so many different books and just studying people for at least the last 6 years in regard to sales incentives, like most people are really just motivated by one thing. It's usually just money. You know what I mean? That money will take care of the trips, recognition, all that. It's really those two things right there. So the money and recognition is usually what drives a man and drives a woman. So it's like that would be 99%. But then you come across a very rare individual, that 1%. That's money is, it's great. The recognition is great, but they just have this engine inside of them, this burning, deep, hollow voice, just crying out for them to win everything at all costs, to just go out and be a warrior, to enter like what I like to call is like the Valhalla of today, which is we're not going to kill each other with swords and spears. We're not going to, you know, ravage one another's villages with, you know, our horses and our militia. You know, in today's day and age, it's becoming the absolute best version of yourself and then delivering that to the world. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so your product is yourself, your business is yourself, and I feel like that 1%, you're just driven by this self-realization and this internal vision of becoming the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's a very rare individual to find. And when you do, you hold on to that person because you're either going to work for them or you're going to be working against them, and
Exactly.
it's not going to be a fun experience.
Exactly. So I just recently started reading the book called Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Whitney.
That's great.
I don't know if you've read that.
Yes.
But so I was growing up, I was playing football, and I went to college, played football, and I'm going through this adversity because I was so used to playing against these smaller guys in high school.
Yeah.
And I go and play against these guys 6'7", 6'8", 400 pounds plus.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I was laid on my ass a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But I just kept getting up.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why do I keep getting up? What's making me so different? And I had a trainer. He played in the NFL, won the Super Bowl in 2012 with the New York Giants, and he taught me that these guys at the next level, they're not doing this for the money. Yeah, they may be getting millions and millions of dollars, but they're so hungry to play the sport of football, to beat the man in front of him. There were so many times when I was playing football that I heard, this is the only legal way to put your hands on somebody and absolutely conquer that person.
Yeah.
And that obsession over not necessarily putting my hands on them, but to conquer.
Yeah.
And now I take that drive towards my business, towards my entrepreneurial journey. How can I go every single day, take one step in front of the last?
Yeah.
Not because I want to go and strangle it, but because I want to just take over everything that's in front of me.
Yes.
And it's that hunger that's within that you start to understand as time goes on.
1000%.
And it wasn't, so I stopped playing football 2 years ago, three years ago now. No, 2 years ago, 2022, I stopped playing football. I was supposed to go to San Diego State 2 days before my summer camp. Everything got canceled, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in a position where, okay, I started this lawn care business, and at the time I didn't really have any long-term vision for it, but over time I started to supersede, okay, well, I'm actually good at talking to clients. I'm actually good at starting to make sales, and I actually had my first client before I knew how to turn on the damn lawnmower.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's not for me, but maybe this might be for me.
Yeah.
So I started to pivot. So how do you, obviously you've been in sports and you've done wrestling,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
How do you take that energy, that enthusiasm, that drive, passion towards the game and put that into your entrepreneurship and into your business?
Yeah, I don't believe there's like a separator between the two. You know what I mean? I think this is kind of like what I'm going to talk on later is, I believe you know, there really is no separator between business and self. You know what I mean? So if you were a dog on the field, if you were a dog, in any way, shape, or form, or any aspect of your life on your come up, all of that translates into anything you pursue. As long as there's interest there, your energy and then your obsession of wanting to be number one, wanting to conquer, that's going to translate into anything that you pursue. So it's usually the individuals that you probably didn't have that proper energy within them that find themselves just constantly lagging and asking themselves, is this for me? Should I do this? Like, and not being able to find or identify anything in life because there's some type of internal brokenness. They've not really shattered through what I call that mediocre fog of, there's just no exhaustion in their life. For somebody to truly elevate, you have to constantly find levels of exhaustion, mentally, physically, spiritually. You have to exhaust yourself because there's no opportunity for you to grow in the midst of comfort, like we stated and started with. So
absolutely. So you spoke a little bit about how you go through your life, and it's not necessarily about being motivated, but being disciplined.
Yeah.
And I spoke on this recently, is that it's not about being motivated, but it's about you directing that force that you have within towards the right direction where you want to go.
Yeah.
Because I could have all this energy and I could be so passionate and driven, but if I wanted to go and do something that wasn't going to get the result out of my life that I wanted to do, I wouldn't be using it as wisely, as correctly as I could be.
Yeah.
So you have this energy, you have this passion. How do you take this drive, this obsession that you have, and properly push it in the right direction so that you can see constant growth in your life?
Okay, so taking the drive and then constantly making sure that drive is aligned with my vision to make sure I have that constant growth. Is that the question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think, again, it's like very simple for me. I think it's just a winning thing. Like anything that I can measure, I know I'm going to want to win in. You know what I mean? So if it's measurable, which I believe pretty much everything in life can be measured to like a certain degree.
Right.
So if it's measurable, I'm going to want to win. And I've pretty much created this balanced system of, I might not win tonight. Might not win tomorrow, but I'm going to win, you know? So that's exactly what I'm here for.
That's the mentality that you need to have. So obviously we live in a day and age that's completely different from, you spoke on that you have a lot of 30 and 40-year-old friends that are doing really big numbers.
Yes, yeah.
We live in a day and age that you don't really have another option other than to be on social media.
Yes.
How do you think that social media has pushed you and also changed the game, changed the battlefield, as I like to say, for all the new and up-and-coming entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah, I mean, social media has completely revolutionized the entire world. You know what I mean? And it's people don't realize how powerful it's truly been and how powerful it's truly going to be. And there will be a lifeline to it, because there's a lifeline to everything. So either we're going to expire, or eventually social media will expire and it'll evolve into the next phase, the next thing that it'll be. Because if you really look at it, everything operates pretty much off of no longer than a 2 to 3 decade time span, because you know, your parents and our parents, all you have to do is just look at every generation before you. It's like, what was the hottest music out when they were in their 20s? We don't talk about those artists much, you know what I mean? Or if we do, those are like, you know, classic music. That's a classic artist. That's whatever it might be. And so it's like every single piece of their life, just in 2 to 3 decades, just our parents, we perceive everything that they liked as classical.
Right.
That will be the same for us as well. So when people don't realize that, you know, maybe social media will have a 3-decade, let's say it has 20 more years of like just pure burning fire. You know what I mean? So there will always be marketing, but like just the way that we're experiencing it right now, people don't realize that there are individuals that are leveraging the simple fact that you can generate millions of views and essentially monetize some type of product or service through those millions of views, regardless of your resume. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what school you went to, doesn't matter necessarily how old you are, because taking into consideration there's 10-year-olds out there that are going to do 50 million this year just through YouTube toy reviews. So the discrimination really just comes down to, first off, are you willing to create content? And second off, are you going to be consistent in creating that content? And then I guess thirdly, the only other metric would be, does your content generate any views? Because a lot of people make content and there's a lot of bogus accounts out there that just don't generate any views. And then I think a lot of that also could revert back to the second point is people will make content, they'll start making content, but then they'll be 4 or 5 years in with minimal views. They're just getting 1,000 views per video, and they're just pretty much just disgraced with themselves and just not satisfied, which is great. You shouldn't be satisfied, but they end up quitting. You know what I mean? So they're like, or I'm gonna rebrand, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna transition into a new facet of I want to try this, that. It's like, dude, you're the brand. You've always been the brand. You're the product. Don't worry about it. Just keep making content. And if you're developing yourself and increasing yourself, which you are the product, then your content's just naturally going to get better. I think a lot of people, they misconstrue the idea of social media because they obsess with the quality of essentially, I guess you could say like the context of the deliverance opposed to like the message. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of like content creators. Like I feel like Wes does most of his messages just through his phone. You know what I mean? And
It's right here.
$100 a month. You know what I mean?
Right here.
Exactly. Where it's like, then you got like even like this setup, it's like $15,000-$20,000. You know what I mean? Of just camera and equipment in here. So it's like generates a fraction of the views that Wes Watson does.
Exactly. But we're shooting everything here on the iPhone.
Exactly.
And I really want to. So obviously you have this large following online, and people look up to you for what you've accomplished, not the way that your videos look.
Yes.
They look up to you for you.
Yes, yeah. That's what I was trying to say.
What do you think is obviously you need to be focusing on your personal development, your personal success, how you can better improve yourself to give to the world, to be that person that you're proud of, right?
Yeah.
And how do you think that you've transcended over time? How do you think that from where you started to where you are now, what's that big thing that has just come up day after day after day that this is what I'm chasing?
Yeah, man. For me, I think, being a movie fanatic, I always think about like my favorite movies, which is like Troy, 300, Scarface, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. So for me, if you study the movies that I really resonate with, it's always some like individual warrior that dies, maybe necessarily dies sooner than they should, but in the process they become an absolute legend and they go out and destroy everybody. You know what I mean? So it always goes back again. For me, you're going to get me on the competitive nature and win. You know what I mean? So it's like it's not like second place, third place win. It's first place, and I simplify it as, okay, when I check Forbes on who's the richest man in the world, I think right now it's Jeff Bezos at $200-some billion, whatever it might be. So that's the number that I'm chasing, and then I just dissect it backwards. I look at, well, what's controllable for me in my life? I know I can read more, I can pray more, and I can work out more. So I know all three of these things are components that are going to ultimately just increase my personal value, and that's going to pour into every aspect of my life. And then obviously I've got to generate the repetitions in regard to revenue generation, so I can reinvest that revenue back into myself and in more networking, branding, and everything like that.
Absolutely. So kind of wrapping everything up, how can you, if there was an entrepreneur, someone that had that inner drive within them, right? You can't teach that. But if there was an entrepreneur that in today's society was looking to start their first business or has already been in business for 2, 3, 4, 5 years even, and they're looking to take that next level, get to that next step, what do you think are some easy, not necessarily easy, what do you think are some steps that they can take that would get them to the next revenue goal for the year, to become that person that's making $150,000 a month, $1 million a month?
Well, I think the first thing is realization of, I believe once you become conscious, like maturity pretty much sets in, you truly become like a mature conscious being. That varies for everybody. You know what I mean? It might be 12 years old, it might be 16 years old, it might be 22 years old for some. And some people, like the individuals that were down, the losers that were down in Miami, when we were down there for that weird music fest, they're 60 years old, 50 years old, just rolling around in the mud. Sometimes it's never, unfortunately. But for those that, when you reach that state of awareness that you are alive and you are in a world that nobody can come and save you, you are the only thing that can save you. That's when I believe somebody should be blessed with hearing and knowing, because I wish I would have heard this when I became like consciously aware, like 16, 17 years old, is that you are the business. Everybody's building businesses.
Absolutely.
Some just build better ones than others, and most build horrible businesses. They build mediocre businesses because they allow society and the world and the majority to program them into believing they should do what everybody else is doing. Just go to school and go to work 9 to 5. We'll tell you when you can take off. We'll tell you when you can take a vacation. We'll tell you what you're worth per hour. Take your dreams, shove them up your butt, and don't ever bring them up again. You know what I mean? So when people realize they're worth way much more than that, that's when they take over. And it starts with, I am the business, not my boss, not my family, not my friends. I am the business. And so when you have that self-realization, then you understand that you're not gonna win Rome in a day. It can fall in a day. You can lose it all in a day. But for you to build the empire of your dreams, you're gonna wake up and you're gonna do a little bit today, and you're gonna do a little bit tomorrow, and you're gonna do it the next week, the next month, the next year. And if you can commit to about a decade, if you really want to guarantee it's just 2 decades, whatever you do, doesn't matter. There's a dog food company out back I keep referencing in all my content, $1 million company. The product doesn't matter. The service doesn't matter. It's a byproduct of you, the real product. If you're a great individual and you've got great marketing, it doesn't matter what you're selling. People are gonna buy.
Yeah.
When you realize you're the business, you take over.
That's it.
That's all.
That's it. Well, thank you so much
Yes.
for coming on the pod.
Yes. Thank you,
Thank
bro.
you.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.